Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be doing the interactive comments section, which is coming from Frontend Mentor. So if you go into frontendmentor.io/challenges, you can simply search for this challenge. It is called interactive comments section. You can click on it and then you can read what it is about. You can click on the images to see what we're going to be building in this video. And then once you're done with that, then you can go ahead into the download assets tab, where you can download the starter files. Now once you download the starter files, it is going to download a zip file for you, just like this one, which when you extract, it is going to extract into a folder like this. So you're going to have a bunch of other things, as you can see right there, the design, the images, the data.json, which is the JSON file that contains the comments that you're going to be rendering statically, so these ones. And then of course for the reply function, it's going to be dynamic, so we're going to be working on that as well. And then we also have the preview, the readme template, the style guide, and then the git ignore. So we're going to be building this in NextJs using TsbSankara components as well. So let's go ahead and create our application. So inside my terminal, I'm going to cd into my desktop, and then in my desktop I'm going to say pnpx create next app -e, so that it uses a template that I have, or you can say -- example. And then inside here I'm going to pass in a link to a GitHub template that I have. So github.com/sanctomus/next15-starter. And then the name of application, I'm just going to call it interactive-comments, and then enter. And then this is going to create our application for us. Now this template that I'm using already has, what's this now? Let's fix this. Let's remove this. This should be next 15. There we go. So our application is called interactive-comments. Now this template already has a bunch of dependencies already installed. So for example, I have TsbSankara already initialized in this repository. I also have Prettier plugin for Tailwind CSS, which just helps to sort Tailwind CSS classes, and it is already installed and configured as well. So let this finish, and then we're going to take a look at those two dependencies because they are going to be very useful to us. So once that finishes running, I'm going to open up an instance of my code editor, which is VS Codium. So I'm going to say Codium, and then into the interactive-comments, which is going to open up our code editor right there. So now I can close that, and then I had another instance. I can close this so that now I can expand this. And from the sidebar, you can see that we have the app folder. So we're using the app router, and then we have the lib, which just basically contains the utils, which I don't think we're going to touch in this video. And then the public folder, which has the images, which you don't really need. And then we have the components.json file. And if you take a look at it, this is where you realize that TsbSankara is actually installed already. It is using the New York style, and then it has, where is it? The base color is neutral. So I went with neutral. You can use any other color if you want. You can just simply delete this file and then reinitialize TsbSankara if you want. And then for the components, they're going to be inside the components folder, the utils inside the utils folder, and so on and so forth. And then the icon library that we have access to is called Lucid React. So we don't need to install any other icon library because this is already installed, and you can verify that by going into your package.json file, and you'll notice that Lucid React is right here. Now we also have a .prettier.rc file, which just brings in the Prettier plugin Tailwind CSS, and it just brings it in so that now when we are typing out Tailwind CSS classes, it is just going to sort them out into the order that is agreed upon at Tailwind Labs. So I think with that we are ready to begin. So what I'm going to do is, inside our extracted folder, I'm going to go ahead and grab the design and the style guide and the readme template, the readme as well, the preview. We don't need the index.html, but we need the data.json. So just simply drag and drop this inside here, and then when it gives you this dialog, simply say copy folder. And then this readme, we can replace the readme so that it uses the readme from Frontend Mentor. And then for the, let's see, the images are going to be living inside the public folder. So drag and drop them inside the public folder. And then we can delete all these other images because we're not using them anywhere. So now inside the public folder, we have an images folder right here, and then we have the avatars. Okay, now let's go ahead and begin by opening up our terminal and then saying npm dev, which is going to open up our development server on localhost 3000. And there we go. So now our application is running, and you can see that this is just the default template. So first things first, let's go ahead and jump into our globals.css file. Let's go all the way to the bottom, and then let's remove these two classes because we are not building a dark mode version, but I want to add a class here called leading-6, which is going to increase the line height of the text. So save that, and then now we can jump into our app folder, and then inside the app folder we can jump into the layout, because inside the layout we want to change the title here. So I can call this Frontend Mentor, then interactive comments section, and then I can copy this and then just paste it in as the description as well. And then inside here, right above the children, we're going to be rendering a component that is called Toaster. Now Toaster is a component that is coming from TsbSankara, which we need to install. So simply add a second terminal here, and then you can say pnpx TsbSankara add is called Sonar. It's called Sonar. And then as this is installing, actually we need to wait for it to finish. So in a few, and there we go. So once it finishes, you can see that it creates a file inside components UI sonar.jsx, and that is because we are installing a component from TsbSankara. So if you take a look at this, then you're going to find that the sonar is right there. Now what this file is used for is just to simply show alerts. So nice looking alerts in your application. So you can go to the end of this right here and then say Control Spacebar, and then on this drop down you can import the first one, which is coming from Sonar, which is going to auto import it for you, and then you can save that. And then with that we can now jump into our page.jsx. We can remove all this. We can say export default function home, and then inside here we're going to have our return, and we're going to be returning a main element, and this main element is going to have a class name here of min height dash screen, and then bg slate dash 100, then padding all around of 6. And then inside this main element we're going to have a div with a class name of mxauto, and then max width dash 2xl. And then inside this div we're going to be rendering out a component which is called comment list, which we don't yet have. And this comment list component is going to be taking in a prop that we're calling data, and it's going to be equal to the data which is coming from our data.json file, which is right here. So actually let's structure this a bit better. Let's close all of this. Then the data.json file is going to be inside the lib folder. So just drag and drop it inside the lib folder, and then right on top here we can say import data from @lib/data.json, and because it is a JSON file you need to have the extension for it. And then with that we also need to import the comment list. So import comment list from, it's going to be inside the @components folder /comment list. And take note of the spelling. I'm spelling mine with small letters. Now let's go ahead and inside the components let's create a new file called comment list.jsx, and then inside here you can say export default function comment list, and then you can simply just return a div here that says comment list. Save that, and then save the page.jsx as well. And then now if you take a look at our application, we can see comment list right there. So now let's go ahead and jump into our comment list component, and then let's begin to build it out. Now the comment list is going to be a client component because we're going to be having some state inside, and the state that we're going to be having is basically this data. So we need to mark it as use client on the top, and then we're going to go ahead and set up our state value. So const comments and set comments is equal to use state, And then on this drop down, simply click on this or say enter, which is going to auto import it for you. And then once we do that, the use state is going to be equal to the data.comments. And then of course we need to destructure the data because we passed it in as a prop. But now you might be wondering, where is the comments coming from? If you take a look at the data.json file, then you'll notice that the comments is basically this right here, which is available for all. Where is it? Actually, it's only one. So the comments, which shows now the content, the ID, when it was created, who wrote it, the username, and as well as the images, and then whether or not it has replays. So basically that is what the comments is, and that is what we're getting inside here using dot notation. And then with that, we also need to go ahead and get the current user. So current user, so that if you're not the current user, then you're not going to be able to give a reply in the name of someone else. So this is going to be equal to data.current user. Current user is capitalized, and then once again, this is coming from right here. So current user. And then now let's go ahead and build out our return. So I'm going to be returning a div here with a class name of space-y-4, and space-y-4 just means that it has a margin on the top and bottom of 4, which is about 20 pixels, 16 pixels. It's right there. And then inside here, we're going to go ahead and map over our comments, which is now populated with data.comments. So comments.map, and then for every single comment object that we get back, then we're going to have our return here, where we're going to be returning a div with the key of comment.id, because once again, the comments inside here all have IDs, as you can see. And then let's see, it's going to have, actually close this out first and then close out the div. So inside this div, we don't need this. So inside this div, we're going to be rendering out another component, which is called comment. So let's go ahead and create it. So inside components, create a new file called comment, and then notice once again that I'm naming mine with small letters. That's just my preference. And then inside here, we're going to say export default function comment. And then we're going to have a return here, where we're going to be returning a div that just says comment like so. So that now we can go to the end of this, control spacebar, and then use this one that is coming from ./comment, so that you can import it properly. And then once we do that, this comment component here is going to be taking in a couple of props. So it's going to take the comment prop, which is going to be equal to the comment state value, which we have initialized on top. So not the comment state value really, but the comment object that we get back when we map over this. And then it is going to be taking in the current user as well, which we have initialized right here. So the current user prop is going to be equal to the current user state value. And just for your information, you can name this whatever you want, but they just have to be referencing the correct value that you want. So for example, you can call this milk, and it is going to be equal to current user, so that now when you're destructuring it inside the comment, then you have to destruct it as milk. So I just like to call them current user, so that I know that that the current user prop is going to be equal to the current user value. So it doesn't confuse me. And then another prop it's going to take is the set comments, which is equal to the set comments function, and then as well as the comments state value being equal to the comments right there. Now, once we do that, we're going to go below this, and then we want to check if the comment contains any replays. So if comment.replays (map), so right here, right inside the data, you can see that there are comments right here that don't have replays, and then there are other comments that have the replays. So what we're doing here is called optional chaining, where we're saying that if the comment contains replies, so so that we don't get back an undefined value, or they don't get back an error, then we're going to map over them, and then we're going to be returning a reply. So the reply object, and then we're going to say this. Inside here, we're going to render out the very same comment component that we created. And then this is going to have a key of reply.id, because each reply has an ID. And then this is going to have a comment prop, which is going to be equal to the reply. And then once again, now this is important because we are rendering the same component inside here. And because we don't want to render out so many props, then we're just simply saying this, that if the comment has a reply, then the comment prop here, which is similar to this, is going to be equal to the reply, but on top it is going to be equal to the comment. I hope that makes sense. Let me just explain it again. So we are saying here that the comment here component is similar to the comment component that we're rendering if it has any replies. And the comment component here contains a prop which we're setting equal to the comment that we get back as an object when we map over all the comments. But now on the bottom, we are saying this, that because this prop is similar to this prop, then what we want is on top, we want to render out the comment, but if it has replies, then we want to render out the replies as well. And then this is going to be similar here. So the current user prop is equal to the current user that we got right here. And then it's going to have set comments as well. So set comments, what am I typing? Set comments prop is equal to set comments function. And then the comments is equal to comments state value. And then we're going to have an is reply, which we are going to initialize inside the component. And then the parent ID here is going to be important as we are going to set it equal to the comment.id. And that should be okay. Now we're going to go outside of everything inside here, and then we're going to render out a component here that is called comment form, which we have not yet created. But the comment form component is going to take in the current user prop, which is going to be equal to the current user state value. And then it's going to have an onSubmit function, which is going to be equal to the handle add comment. So let's go ahead and create this component. So once again, inside components, create a new file called comment form.jsx and then export default function comment form. And then inside here, we're going to return a div that says comment form. Save that. And then back inside here, control spacebar, enter to auto import it. And then now let's go ahead and create this function. Otherwise, we're going to have an error. So we're going to say this const handle add comment is equal to, and we're going to be checking for the text as a parameter, so whether or not it contains any text. And then we're going to say const new comment, so you're adding a new comment, is equal to, and we're going to create an object. So the comment should have, let's see, the data.json. The comment should have this structure. So it should have an ID, content, created at, the score, and then the user, and then whether or not it has the replies. So that is how we're going to create a new comment. So the ID here, we're going to do a bit of cheating here, where we're going to say date.now, so that we just get the unique value of the current date of the user. And then the content here is going to be equal to the text, which we are taking in as a parameter. And then created at, we're just going to render just now because we don't want to start dealing with dates. And then the score for this is going to be 0 by default because it's a new comment, so it doesn't have any score or upvotes. And then the user is going to be the current user because only the current user should be able to add comments. And then the replies is going to be an empty array because since it is a new comment, it doesn't have any replies. And then once we do that, then we want to populate our comments. So we're going to say set comments, and then we're going to go ahead and check the previous value of the comments. And then we're going to use the spread operator. So open up your brackets here, your square brackets, and then we're going to say return every previous value and then append the new comment. So that is how we are going to be creating the what's it called? Why is this? Oh, it's new comment, not new comments. And that should be okay. So now we can save that, and then let's take a look at the screen. There we go. So you can see that we have a comment here, a comment here, a comment, and there we go. And I think the reason for this space is because this one should have replies or something. I think so. But let's go ahead, and now we can jump into the comment right here, which is probably going to be our biggest file because this is where many of the functions are going to be living. So inside the comment.jsx, once again, this is going to be a client component. So mark it as use client on the top. And then because it has props, where is it? Let me close this. We passed in props right here as well as right here. So we're going to be destructuring them. So we're going to say that we want to get the comment, the current user, the comments, and set comments. and then is reply. Now we're going to initialize this to false, and then the parent ID is going to be null. And looking at this, I don't know whether we're going to be using this, but if not, we're just going to remove it. I can't remember where I used this because I built this project about like 4 or 5 weeks ago. Now, once we do that, then we're going to set up our state values because it has a few state values. So I'm going to say const is replying, and set is replying. This is equal to useState. By default, it is going to be false. And then const is editing, and set is editing is equal to useState. By default is going to be false. And before I forget, just go to the end of one of these useStates, control spacebar, and then enter to auto import it. And then const show dialog, and set show dialog is equal to useState, and by default it is going to be false. And then const edit content, and set edit content is equal to useState, and by default we're going to pass in the comment dot content. And once again, we are accessing this and then getting the dot content, which is inside here. And then we want to get const is current user. This is going to be equal to comment dot user dot username, and we want to check whether this is equal to the current user dot username. And then once again, this is coming all from here. So current user dot username, and we're accessing the comment dot user dot username, which is right here. So comment dot user dot username, and we want to check whether it is equal to the current user dot username, which is coming from the top. So current user dot username. Okay, now once we have that, then let's begin to build out our UI. And then as we build out our UI, we're going to be encountering places where we need to create comments, not comments really, sorry, but functions. So when we reach a place where we are creating a function, then we're going to create that function. So we're just going to go step by step. So inside here, we're going to return a div here, which is going to have a class name here, which is a dynamic. So pass in your backticks inside here. And by default, it's going to have a class of relative, and then rounded dash large, and then bg white, and then padding all round of 6, and then shadow dash sm. And then we're going to add our $ curly brackets, and then we want to check whether is reply is true. So we want to check whether the comment is a reply. So if that is true, this should be inside here. So if it is true, then the comments, then the class names is going to be margin y of 4, margin left of 4, and then on small screens, we're going to say margin left of 12, and then otherwise, so this should be outside of the brackets, can't see, outside of the brackets should be there. Otherwise, if that is not true, so if it is not a comment, then we simply want to render out an empty styles inside here. Where did I go wrong? Should be inside here. There we go. So if it is a reply, then these are the classes that are going to apply. And if it is not a reply, then no classes are going to apply. But by default, all these are going to be applying. Now inside this div, we're going to have another div with a class name of margin bottom of 6, and then flex dash column, and then gap of 4, and then on small screens, we're going to say flex dash row. And then inside this div, we're going to have another div with a class name of hidden, and then flex dash column, and then items dash center, and then rounded dash large, and then bg dash indigo dash 50, and then padding on the x of 2, and then padding on the y of 4, and then on small screens, we're going to say flex. Now, what I'm doing here is part of an extension which comes pre-installed if you're using VS Code or VS Codium, and it is called Emmet. So if you don't have access to that, if you're using another code editor, for example, then simply go ahead and install Emmet. It is called Emmet, just like that. Now, inside here, we're going to have a button, which is a component from shardcn, which we need to install. So Ctrl-J to open up your terminal, and then you can say pnpx shardcn add button. And because we're going to need a few other components, and I actually think it's only 2 components, so we need to install the text area as well, because the text area is what we're going to be using to type in comments, and then we need the dialog component in order to show the whether you want to delete the comment dialog. So enter to install all of them at once, and then as they're installing, we can continue building. So this button right here is going to have an on-click function, and this is going to be an inline function where we're going to say update score, and then pass in 1 because we want to update the score upwards by 1. So we're going to create that function. And then the variant for this button is going to be the outline, because it is a shared CN button. So we are provided with some variants by default, which just style out the buttons to look a certain way. And then inside here, we're going to be rendering the plus icon. So plus right here. So simply enter, which is going to import it from Lucid React, bring it downwards. And then the plus icon here is going to have a size of 18. And then you can simply just do that. Now, before you save it as this finished, yes, now you can go on the button right here, control spacebar, and then enter, which is going to auto import the button as well. Now, below this button, and let's remove this semicolon. So below this button, we're going to render out a span with a class name here of padding y of 1, and then font -bold, and then text -indigo -700. And this span is going to be saying the comment.score, which we should have access to. But now let's create this function before we can save it so that we don't have any errors. So we're going to say const update score is equal to, and it is going to be taking in a value here. You can call this value anything, but when I was creating it, I called it delta, because the delta is the difference between two things. And then inside here, this should be const. And then inside here, we're going to say const updated is equal to comments.map. So we want to get all the comments. And then for every comment that we get back, I'm calling it C. So the object that we get back when you map over them, I'm calling it C. And this is going to be equal to this. We're going to say if the C.id is equal to the comment.id. Now, if you're wondering why I didn't call it comment, it is because of this conflict right here, because the comment is already initialized here. So if that is going to be true, then we want to go ahead and return here an object. We want to spread out every property of the comment that exists already, and then place a comma, but we want to change the score. So the score is going to be c.score, so that you can get the current score, and then plus the delta, which we're getting inside here. So once again here, we are spreading all the properties that already exist in the comment, but we want to change the score property. And then we're saying that check first of all if there is a current score property. So for example, if it is already on 12, then it's going to be 12 plus the delta, which in this case is going to be 1, because the delta here is the argument and we're passing in the argument as 1. Now, below this, we're going to say if the c.replies, so if it is a reply, then we're going to say this c.replies is equal to c.replies.map, and then for every reply that you're getting back, I'm calling it r, and then we're going to say this, return the r.id, which is equal to the comment.id, so that you get the correct thing. And then if this is true, then you want to spread out the reply, and then you want to change the score again. So score, where we're going to say r.score plus the delta. And then otherwise, if that is not true, then we simply want to return the r property, the single property. And let's see if that is correct. We need a semicolon here. Then we need to go below this, and then we're going to return the C, which is basically the object. And that should be very, very nice. But then once we do that, now we can now set comments here. We can now populate our comments into the updated, so that now we can now get the updated comments. Fantastic. Let's save that. Let's see what we have on the screen. And there we go, looking very, very nice. So you can have the plus button here. You can see that now when I click on it, I'm adding it by 1. So if you wanted to add this by 10, for example, you simply have to change the value inside here. And then now when I click on it, it now adds it by 10. But we only know that the reply should be added by 1. So it's just a bit of playing around with the logic. Now we have, let's see, we have we have the plus button. As you can see, we have the number. Now we need the minus button. So that is very, very easy to do. We are simply going to go below this span. We're going to create another button here with an on click, which is going to be an inline function like so. And then on the on click, we're going to call update score -1. So take away 1 from it. And then the variant for this is also going to be an outline. And then you can close that. And then now we're going to be rendering out an icon called minus. And then you can simply say enter to auto import it from Lucid React. And then the size for this is going to be 18. And then when you save that, you're going to have the plus and the minus right there. But you can see that the outlines, the buttons here are not really styled all that well. So the good thing about TsbSankara is you can simply go into the component right here, button.jsx, and then the variants that we have by default are all these inside here. And we are dealing with the outline. So you simply want to go ahead and change out the outline. So I don't want the background. I want the background to be transparent. And when I save that, then you'll notice that now the background should be transparent sometime today. Let's see how this looks. It is transparent. It is slightly, what's it called? Slightly indigo. So let's see. Let me see. Reload that. Outline BG transparent. On hover BG accent, we don't need that. On hover text accent, we also don't need that. We don't need the dark mode. We don't need the dark mode classes because we're not building dark mode anyway. And we also don't need the shadow. And by the way, we don't even need the border. Okay, there we go. So now we can change the text. Is it the text? The text should be indigo-50. I can't remember what style I used, but 50 is not visible. So let's say 700. Okay, 700 is the same color as that. So let's say 400. And then on hover, text indigo-500. So now when you hover over it, yeah, I think that's okay. Fantastic. So you can see that the plus button works and the minus button also works. So let's go ahead and continue building out our UI. So we're going to go below this div, and below this div we're going to have a div with a class name of flex-1, because remember that the parent here is this div which has a class name of flex. So flex-1 is just simply going to make sure that it takes up the rest of the space on the screen. And below this, we're going to say that we're going to create another div with a class name of margin bottom of 2, and then flex, then items-center, and then justify-between. And then inside here, we're going to have another div with a class name of flex, and then items-center, and then gap-4. And then inside this div, we're going to render out an image, and make sure that you import this one from next image because we want to get that image. And then the source for this image is going to be the comment.user.image.png. Now, once again, where is this coming from? Simply go into your data.json file, and we're saying here that, where is it? The comment is this one, .user.image.png. Now you can get the PNG image or the WebP image, and I think that the WebP image is much better in terms of loading and optimization. So image, where is it? The avatars, because it's going to into the images and then the avatars and then that one and then the WebP. So you can see that you have the PNG and then the WebP or the WebP version for each one of them. So actually, let's just change that into WebP because that is the current standard. And then the alt attribute, in case the image fails to load, we want to show the username. So comment.user.username. And then the width for this is going to be 32. And then the height for this is going to be 32. And then the class name is going to be rounded-full. And then below this image, we're going to have a span with a class name of text-sm and then font-semi-bold. And then inside this span, we're going to render the username. So comment.user.username. And then below this span, we want to check whether it is the current user. So if is current user, and this is something that we got right here, so we're using this one. So if is current user, so only when that is true, that is when we want to render out a span here. And this span is going to have a class name of rounded-sm and then bg-indigo-700 and then padding on the x of 2, padding on the y of 0.5, text dash extra small XS, and then text dash white, and then the span is going to say you. So you are the current user. Now I think we are able to save that, and then let's see what we have on the UI once it reloads. So it says, what did I import the image? Failed to construct URL. So comment.user.image. Did I do that correctly? So comment.user.image.webp. I think it's because of in the data.json it is /. So simply select this part, so the /, and then say Control D all the way to the end, and then now you can use the back arrow and then just remove the dot. So it should go into /images/avatar, because they're in the public folder, so they should be accessible like that. Let's save that and then let's reload. Let's see whether it is going to work. So there we go. You can see that now it is now rendering the image of the person and then the username. And then when it is rendering your username, so you are the current username, then that is the span that is showing. Fantastic. Now let's go ahead and do this. We can close that. Close where? Okay, we are here. So right below this, we're going to have another span with a class name of text-sm and then text gray-500. And then the span here is going to say comment.created at. And then when you save that, we should be able to see 2 weeks ago, 1 month ago, 2 days ago, and so on and so forth. And this is all the static data that is coming from the data.json file. Now, once we have the span here, we're going to go below this div. So below this div, we're going to create another div with the class name of flex, and then item.center, and then gap-4. And then inside here, we want to check for the is current user. So is current user, if this is true, then we're going to be rendering out a fragment here. And then when it is false, we're going to be rendering out a button. So let's start with the button because it's easier. So the button component, and when you click on this button here, it is going to call an inline function where we're going to say set is replying, which is our what's it called? Our function that controls the state value. And we're going to set it equal to the opposite of is replying. So basically, when is replying is true, then set it to false, and if it is false, then set it to true. So that's what this function right here is doing. And then this button is going to have a variant of outline, and then the text for this button is going to be showing the forward icon. So forward icon right here, so you can input either this or this. So forward, and then the text is going to say reply, and then the size of this is going to be 18. And that is our else. So now let's go ahead and build out the fragment. So for the fragment, we're going to render out the button, and this button is going to have another on click, which is going to be an inline function, where it's going to say set show dialog into true, because show dialog is a state value which we initialize to false. So inside this button, when you click on this button, it is going to initialize it to true. The variant for this is going to be destructive, so that it shows a red button. And then the icon inside here is going to show the trash icon, so trash like so from Lucid React. The size for this is going to be 16. Wait a minute, what size did I use? I used 18, so let's use 18. And then when you close out this, it's going to say delete. Let's see, that should be fine. Now below this button, once again, we're going to have another button. This button is going to have an on click, and it is going to have an inline function where you're going to say set is editing to true, like so. The variant for this is going to say outline. And then when you close this button, we're going to have a pencil icon, so pencil, enter to auto import it from Lucid React. The pencil here is going to have a size of 16, so size is equal to 16. And then inside here, the text is going to be dependent on the is editing. So if is editing is true, then the text that you want to show is editing. And then if it is false, then the text should say edit. So that should be fine. Now let's save that. Let's see what we have on the screen. Loading. There we go. So reply, reply, reply. So when you click on this, where is it? Edit, delete. Where is it? Okay, there we go. So when you click on the edit button, now it says editing. When you click on it again, or actually we can't toggle it because where is it? Right here. is editing is set to true, not to the opposite of is editing. And then when you delete this, it should show something. And I think I styled out this outline wrong because it should not be looking like that. Wait a minute. Oh, it is like that. It is. Okay, so I'm correct. So I think the outline here needs to be bold. So let's jump into the button.jsx file. So inside the comments, close this. So inside the components and then the button, and then on the outline, let's say font dash, is it semi-bold or bold? Semi-bold. Let's see. I think that's better. That's better. Text indigo, let's say text indigo 500 to make it a bit bolder. That's much better. Now we're going to go, let's see, so we have closed this, we need 1, 2. So below this second div, we want to check whether is editing is true. So if is editing is true, then we're going to be rendering something inside here. And then if it is false, then we're going to be rendering out something else. So let's start with the false part. So we're going to render out a paragraph. Okay, let's remove that. Okay, there we go. So we're going to render out a paragraph inside here. And the paragraph is going to have a class name of text dash small leading dash 6, and then text gray dash 600. And we already set leading 6 on the body, so we don't need it there. And then the text for this is going to say comment dot replying to, and we want to check whether this is true. And if it is true, then we want to go ahead and render out a span. And then this span is going to have a class name here of margin right of 1, and then font dash medium, and then text dash indigo dash 700. And then the span inside here, we're going to say, it should say at, and then comment dot replying to. And then otherwise, so if this is not true, then we're simply going to go outside of that, and then we want to render out the comment dot content. So what this basically means is we are checking whether the comment that you're writing is a reply to someone. So if it is a reply to someone, then we're going to render this. And then if it is not a reply, then we're simply going to render out the comment. Now, right here, we're going to say this is editing is true. We're going to render out a div and then close it out. And this div is going to have a class name here of space dash y dash 2. And then inside this div, inside this div, we're going to render out the text area component, which is coming from ./UI and then text area, which I auto imported as you have seen right there. It's going to have a class name here of width dash full, and then text dash sm. And then the value for this is going to be the edit content, which remember we have somewhere. It is one of our state values right here. So edit content. And by default, you can see that it is set to the content of the comment. And then let's see, the value is right there. And then on change, so that we're able to edit it, we're going to call our inline function. We're going to get the synthetic event of e, and then we'll say set edit content into e.target.value, so that we can get the content that is being written inside. And then below this, we're going to have a div with a class name of flex, and then justify dash end. And then inside this div, we're going to have a button with an on click here, which is going to be calling a function called save edit. And then inside here, we're going to render out the forward icon once again, which already imported. And then the text is going to say update, like so. Now let's go ahead and create this function before we save our work. Otherwise, we're going to have some issues. So right below this, we're going to call a function here. So const save edit is equal to an arrow function like so. And then inside here, we're going to say const updated once again. So updated is going to say comments.map. And then for every c that we get back, we're going to say if the c.id is equal to the comment.id, and you can see it's almost similar to this, then we're going to go ahead and say return, and we want to spread out every property inside here. But the property that we want to change is the content, because we have updated it, and we want to set the content here equal to the edit content, because the edit content controls our text area input. Now once we do that, we want to go ahead and check if c.reply. So if it is a reply, then we're going to say c.replies is equal to c.replies.map, and then for every reply that we get back, then we're going to check the r.id being equal to the comment.id, and then if this is true, once again open this up, spread out the rest of the properties, and then get the content property which you want to update into the edit content state value, like so. Otherwise, we're going to simply turn the r like so, and then below this we're going to turn the c, and then below this we're going to say set comments into the updated, which we have right on top, and then we're going to say set is editing back to false, because when you click on the button here, we're setting is editing to true, and then once we are done with editing, once we save it, then we set is editing to false. Now I've gone a bit faster here because this is basically the same as what we did on top, the only difference being that now instead of getting the score, we are getting the content. So it's basically the same. Now you can save that, and then let's see what we have on the screen. There we go. So you can see that now we have our comments right there. Now when I click on is editing, the text area shows up, and if I can add something new and then update, you can see that now it is updated with a new value, looking very, very nice. Now I just noticed something, that the button here has the wrong styles applied to it, so I think I didn't give it a variant right here. So the variant for this, I don't know, should I give it a default variant? I mean, that's already the default variant, but now what I want to do is inside the button.jsx, I want to change this default variant. I want to give it bg indigo 700, so that now it is going to be purple, and then when you hover over it, I also want to change the color. So on hover, we're going to say bg indigo 700 with an opacity of 90, and that should be okay. That's much better. So now we can update just to keep it in line, you know, with the themes that we have, like the purple theme that is going on. Fantastic. Now once we do that, then we are going to go right below, let's see, after is editing, which is ending right here, we're going to go below this. So we need to go below 1, 2, so these two divs, and then we're going to say we want to check for whether is replying is true. So if is replying is true, then we want to go ahead and render out something only when it is true. So we're going to have a div here with a class name of margin top of 4, and then we can close out the div, and then inside here we're going to be rendering out the comment form component which already created. And what I've done right there is just auto importing it, because I've done it many times in this video, so you should be able to move along with it. So comment form here is going to take in some props. So current user prop is going to be equal to the current user, which we have on top, and then the comments here is equal to the comments, and then set comments is equal to the set comments function, and then replying to, so replying to, I can't spell it, replying to is equal to the comment.user.username, because that is the person that you're replying to, and then the parent ID. Okay, so we do use it, so parent ID is equal to the parent ID that we are getting when we destruct it, and by default, by the way, remember that it is null by default. So we're going to set this equal to the parent ID, and if it is null, so if it does not exist, then we're going to set it equal to the comment.id. So this is all. So parent ID, so check whether this is true. If it is not true, then set it equal to this, and then we need to get set is replying, set it equal to the set is replying function, and then finally on submit, set it equal to the handle add comment. Now we need to create this function, so let's go ahead and do that right away. So we're going to go right on top, so right below the save edit, we're going to say const handle add comment. This is going to be taking in the text argument, and you don't have to call it text, but I've called it text just for the sake of, you know, easy to remember. So const new reply, so if you're replying, then the structure is going to be similar to the comment. So we need the ID, which we're going to set into date.now, and then we need the content, which is going to be equal to the text, and then created at, which is going to be equal to just now, and then we need the score, which is going to be 0, and then replying to is going to be equal to comment.user.username, and then user is going to be the current user. This should be a full column. And then once we do that, then we want to go ahead and update the comments because we are adding a new comment. So const updated is equal to comments.map, and then for every C that we get back for every comment, we want to check if the c.id is equal to the parent ID. Sorry, is equal to, open up your curly brackets, and then parent ID or the comment.id. So once again, because it is null by default. And what have I done there? I'm missing one bracket. Oh, sorry, this should not be curly brackets. What am I doing? That should be okay. There we go. So when that has run, then what we want to do is return the properties inside here, but we want to change the replies. So replies here is going to be equal to the new reply. So new reply, and then we want to go ahead and spread all the remaining replies. So spread all the c.replies or return an empty array. So just like that, and then we're going to go below this, and then below this, and then we're going to say return C, which is the comments. And then once we do that, then we want to update the comments. So set comments into the updated, and then we're going to say set is replying back to false because it is a boolean. Now once we do that, let's see, we should be able to see the comment form. So save that, and then let's see, did we build anything inside the comment form, by the way? So comment form just shows nothing, so it just shows this. So we need to actually build it in order to test it out, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and finish up with the comment component, because now we're remaining with only one thing. So we're going to go finally below this, and then now we want to go ahead and render out the dialog component from from TsbSankara. Now TsbSankara is a bit funny when working in VS Code because it is built on Radix UI, as you can see right there. So just make sure that when you're importing your components, you import the ones that you actually have inside your components folder, which is the ./UI/dialog. Just make sure that you have the UI folder inside here, so that when you auto import it, you import the correct thing. So we're going to have a dialog here. The dialog has an open prop, which is going to be equal to the show dialog state value, and then on open change. So when we either open or close the dialog, we want to call the set show dialog function that we also created, and then we need to have the dialog content. Once again, make sure that you're using the one from the UI folder. So enter. So dialog content is going to have a class name here of small screens max. Small screens. We're going to say max-width-md, and then inside here we're going to have the dialog header. Once again, enter, and then inside the dialog header we're going to have the dialog title. Once again, enter, and then the title is going to say delete comment, and then below the dialog header we're going to have a paragraph here with the class name of text-small, and the paragraph is going to say, are you sure you want to delete this comment? This will remove the comment and cannot be undone. And then once we do that, we're going to have a div here with the class name of margin top of 4, and then flex, and then justify dash between, and then inside this div we're going to have a button with an on click here, which is going to be calling a function here called set show dialog into false. So don't show it again, and then the variant is going to be the outline, and then inside here we're going to be rendering out the X icon from Lucid React. So X, and then the text is going to say no, cancel. And then below this button we're going to have another button. So another button. This button is going to have an on click here, which is going to be calling a function called delete comment. And then the delete comment is going to have a variant here called destructive, so that it shows the red button. And then inside here we're going to be showing the trash icon, which we already used somewhere, and then we're going to say yes, delete. And then now let's go ahead and create this function. So once again, back on top right here, we're going to say const delete comment. And actually, should we put it here? Because this is handle add comment, this is save edit, so let's put it below this. So const delete comment is going to be equal to, is an arrow function, and we're going to say const updated is equal to comments dot map, and then for every comment that we get back, I'm calling it C, we're going to say this: if the c.id is equal to the comment.id, then return null. And then if c.replies, actually, I'm moving too fast for my brain, then you want to say c.replies is equal to c.replies.filter, and then we want to get the actual reply. We're going to say reply.id, return the reply.id, which is not equal to the comment.id, because you should only be able to delete a reply that you've set. And then once you do that, we're going to say return C, and then below this we're going to say dot filter. So right at the end of this, so dot filter, and then pass in a boolean because it can only be either true or false. And then I'm going to say set comments into the updated, and then set show dialog into false. And that should be the delete function. Save that. And then now let me see, we actually need the comment form, but we should be able to test it out. This should open up a dialog. Oh, and you see what happened there? I had already clicked it some time before when I was testing out the edit button. But you can see that now we have the dialog right there, delete comment, no cancel, should now close it. And then if I delete it, it now deletes the comment. You can see that now I don't have the, what's it called? I don't have the username that says you, because, you know, I don't have any comment right there. But if I say reply, you can see that now it opens up the comment form, as you can see, because we are toggling the is reply. So we need to go ahead and build out the comment form next. So inside the comment form, we're going to jump inside here. This is going to be a client component, so use client. And then we need to go ahead and destructure the prop. So we need the current user, and then on submit. Now inside here, we're going to have a state value, so const text and set text, because it is a comment form. So this is going to be equal to useState. By default, it's going to be an empty string. And then right here, control spacebar, and then enter to auto import it. And then below this, we're going to be returning a div here. Sorry, not a div, but a form, because it is a reply form. The on submit of the form is going to be calling the handle submit function. So handle submit, which we are going to create. And then the form is going to have a class name here of flex, and then flex-column, and then item-start, and then gap-4, and then rounded-large, and then bg-white, and then padding all around the 4, shadow-sm, and then on small screens, flex-row, and then on small screens, items-center. And then inside the form here, we're going to have an image component, which is coming from next image. And then the image here is going to have a source of, should be current user dot image dot webp. The alt attribute is just going to say the avatar, is just going to say avatar. You can set it into current user dot name, something like that. And then the width for this is going to be, the width is going to be 40. The height is going to be 40, and I think I used 32 in the other images. So the class name here is going to be rounded-full. And then once you do that, we need to go ahead and render out the text area, which has come from /UI text area. The class name for the text area class name is going to be width-full, and then flex-1, and then the value for this is going to be the text, which we have as our state value. And then on change, we're going to say e is equal to set text into e.target.value, so that you get the value that is typed in. And then the placeholder is going to say add a comment ... And then below the text area, we're going to have a button component from /UI button. The variant is going to be default, and then the type is going to be a button type of submit, so that you can use hydration to, is it hydration or event propagation? I'm even forgetting. So that now this button is going to trigger the submit event of the form right here. So on submit, the icon that we're going to show is the forward icon from Lucid React, and then the text is going to say reply. Now let's go ahead and create, let's move that semicolon first of all, and then let's create this function. So const handle submit is going to be equal to e, and then open up like that, and then we're going to say e.prevent default, so that it prevents the default behavior of the form reloading the web page. And then we're going to say if there is no text dot trim, like so, then we want to say toast.error, and toast is a method that is coming from Sonar. Remember in the beginning we added out this toaster component, so without this toaster component then this is not going to work. So toast.error, and I think probably this is the only place that we're using it, but so type a reply before submitting, and then once you do that, then we're just simply going to say return, and then otherwise we're going to call the onSubmit function. And the onSubmit, remember that we created the onSubmit function. Where is the, let me get it, onSubmit right here. The onSubmit prop here is equal to the handle add comment, and the handle add comment is adding a new comment inside here. So instead of recreating this entire form, we're simply calling it inside here and then passing in the text that is required, because once again inside the comment, the handle add comment takes in the text. So once we do that, then we're going to say set text back to an empty string, so that it just clears out the input. So if I save that, we should be able now to see the comment form. So reload, and let's see, there we go. So add a comment is right there. So adding a new comment, and then I click on reply, then it adds a new comment right there. And you can see that it is only your comments that you can delete. And then if I go into this guy, for example, I can say reply, and then if I type in some gibberish, I can reply to the comment, and you can see that it replies to the comment right there correctly. And if you're wondering how these styles are being applied, we set them up to be applied right from the beginning, I think in the comment right here, where we say that if it is a reply, then the margin on the left should be 4, and then on small screens and above, the margin on the left is equal to 12. So if I were to remove this, for example, and if I just set it to margin on the y of 4, then this is going to come on the end, and you're not going to be able to tell which is a reply and which one is not. So just playing around with a bit of CSS, and you can achieve the desired result. Fantastic. And I think with that we should be done. I'm trying to check for any other use case that we have not done. So reply. Oh, I messed up the buttons. I messed up the styles for the buttons, but they're just CSS styles. You can play around with those. But let's see, no cancel, yes delete. And yeah, it should be responsive, because we always build with Tailwind CSS and we always make them responsive. Okay, so let's see. Let's check out the, what's it called? So you can create, read, update, delete comments. That is true. Upvote and downvote comments, we can do that. And then optimal layout, we have done that because it is responsive. See hover states for all interactive comments, we have done that as well. And then let's see what else. If you're building a purely front end, use local storage to save the current state in the browser. Do I want to do that? Bonus, build the project as a full stack application. Okay, I think we are done with that, because I don't want to do local storage because it always gives me a hard time. So I don't want to do it really, but you should be able to do it because it is a bit of practice. So with that, I want to show you the repository where you're going to be able to get the updated code. So interactive comments section, and then inside here, and actually this is the repository. So if you go into my GitHub profile and then /interactive comment section, this is the code that we have written inside this in this video. But I want to mention something. If you happen to go into the components folder, I have an extra component which is called reply, which I don't remember what I used for. but I think I used it for let me show you, for the is replying part right here. I think I used it for this, because looking at this, it is somehow similar to where we have the U. Where is U? This one. It is somehow similar to this part right here, if you just take a look at this. So that's why I've not added it in this video. And even if I remove it, I don't think we're using it anywhere. I do not think we're using it anywhere at all. So reply is not there. Then insert here, reply is not there. And then in the comments, we should not have the reply component anywhere. That reply. Yeah, so we are not using that component anyway. So you can safely remove it, and I think I'm also going to delete it from the repository as well. But with that, we need to go ahead and submit the solution. So let me go into Netlify. So app.netlify. Let's log into Netlify. And then inside here, let's add a new project, import an existing project from GitHub. And then the repository is called interactive dash comments. You should be able to search with that. And there we go. So interactive comments, let's click on that. The project name is going to be TsbSankara dash interactive dash comments. There you go. And then you can simply say deploy. And then as that is deploying, we can copy out this link, copy that, and then back inside Frontend Mentor, we can say submit solution. And then the solution title is going to be mobile first interactive. Okay, let me say mobile first dash interactive comments section in Next.js and Tailwind CSS. The repository URL is right there. The live site URL is https://sankara-interactive-comments.netlify.app. And then we need to wait for this to finish before we can submit, so that we don't get any errors. Okay, there we go. So if we open this up, we should be able to see our application. Let's see, and there we go, looking fantastic. Now we can say, let's see, we can go to the bottom, say submit solution, cannot process live URL. Did I copy it wrongly? So let me just copy it from here. Let me paste it here. Submit solution. Okay. And there we go. Fantastic. So I think with that is going to be the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the project. I hope you learned something new. And if you did, then please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well if you're not already subscribed. And I will see you in the next one.